And this person said, we grew up on commodity foods, and the food that they gave us back then was all healthy. So this is interesting, right? It was mainly canned goods and cheese. Once in a while, they would give us fruits. So just think about that for a moment. Commodity food program is giving me healthy food. How many of you guys are familiar with commodity foods? How many of you guys have eaten commodity foods? Yeah. Is it healthy? No. Far from it. They're getting a little bit better, but it's still pretty bad. And she continued, we never really grew up eating fruits. When I was younger, way younger, we lived down below by the river. We had an orchard and we grew up eating apples, cherries, pears. When we moved up from down below, we didn't have access to those kinds of fruits. My mom was on welfare, so we didn't grow up eating fruits. She only brought food that would last us the whole month. So that was the reason I think fruits are not important. And so this is the same person that talked about the healthy food earlier. In terms of behaviors, nutrition and physical activity is one that affects everybody, but these also came up in the interviews as well. And this is just kind of a summing up of the past. Historically, the bottom line is that they were healthy people, eating very healthy food. But as time evolved, the diet started to change. Okay, so this is Cindy. We're actually going to use a lot from Cindy because she provides a lot of good examples. It's just easier for me to go to a fast food place. If you work, there's not enough time in the day. Sometimes I'm so tired from work that I just run home and make something easy out of the box instead of really cooking a nice, nutritious meal. How many of you guys do that? I do it all the time. I know what I have to buy, my allowance for food. We live from payday to payday. When I'm really tight on the food budget, I just do shortcuts like, oh, I'll get this cheap one, then this one that's more healthy. Then you read the labels. I even tried doing coupons. Walmart does the price matching, but then you have to drive all the way up there. And that's like a 40-mile drive. Here at work, we know what parents need to survive. Our parents need to pitch in, like for therapy costs for the child. I mean, it just doesn't come. They actually have to pay for it. This is on the reservation. They would drop the therapy and go with what they really need, food, paying the bills. That's the problem we ran into. Some of them have like 10 people in the home to feed. Then they have to prioritize what's more important, what's needed now and what you can get later. And so this is one that's kind of tricky because it's like, do you do what's best for your child or you do what's best for everybody else? And I'm going to go with which one is it going to be better for the most number of people. This is one talking about the food at our ceremonies. At the ceremonies, they're baking, they're cooking, but they're adding lard, and they're adding all this stuff for flavor, even salt. I know that a lot of people use what's given to them, and it's funny because one time I asked my mom, what do you take to somebody's camp? She says, you take the traditional stuff. I'm like, well, what is that? She was like, well, you have to get macaroni, flour, coffee, sugar, lard, potatoes, pop. I'm like, well, that's the tradition about it? She goes, well, that's just what we always give. And so I think on the Navajo reservation, you guys call it the sheep herder special. Right? That's what I heard it being called. But we have the equivalent. We don't own sheep, so I don't know what we should call it. This is Janet talking about exercise. A long time ago, a lot of our exercise came from working the land. We used to work. My mom had a garden, and we worked in the garden. My grandpa planted out every year, and we were out there picking corn when it was time to harvest. And so a lot of our elders grew up in wickiups, and they were collecting water with donkeys. They were up at the crack of dawn, making sure everybody got water, having to walk with them. I actually have some pretty good donkey stories in my dissertation. I should have shared. But a lot of them planted corn. They were out there planting corn on the ground. When it came up, they were planting it, they were shucking it. Very, very active. This is Tiffany. She said a long time ago we used to haul water with donkeys or horses. Bring the water back, build the fire, warm up the water, wash your clothes with the washboard in the tub. That was a lot of exercise. Now we live in modern homes with running water. We don't have to haul water. We have gas and firewood. and we're idle a lot. It's very comfortable, but we don't exercise much anymore. And so this is Catherine talking about, this is more of a current example. The tribe used to help. If you go exercise, you get an hour and a half lunch break. But we can't do that here because we're all short-staffed. My daughter and I have a weight problem. I keep saying we're going to go to the gym, and we're going to walk on the treadmill, and we're going to go to Zumba, but time, it's hard. Because I get up at 5, then it's already 6, and I'm tired. How many of you guys kind of encounter that problem? Yeah. I like to work out, but I also have to work. And I have to go home because I have a 2-year-old, so it makes it very, very hard. And this is Cindy, we talked about her earlier. She said, I'm also a taxi after I get out of work. I have relatives that don't have cars, and I don't want to say no to them, so I drive them. I want to be helpful, and I just think it's better to give to help. I believe in that. Does anybody ever serve as a taxi for your family members? Quite a few of us. And it takes away from some of our family responsibilities, right? Okay, so some of these we talked about earlier. Some of these even came up in the interview, but safety, lack of trust, access to healthy food. So a lot of us live in geographically rural areas, and so like the woman said, she had to go far away to go to Walmart. It's 40 miles. The cost of food can be really prohibitive, and just your knowledge of food. And then there's health-related behaviors. A lot of what we eat and what we do and think is traditional is a result of history and that colonization and that time where we lived maybe forced to stay in forts and were given rations. And then things such as work. Work gets in the way of being healthy. Okay, so in conclusion, racial residential segregation is an overarching structure that affects health. So, and contextual factors that exist on the reservation are largely a result of the segregation. And so we talked about all of this already, so I'm going to go to the last slide. So this is just the first of one paper that I see in the future. Initially, I bit off way too much for this paper, and I had to scale back. So, so I see this as the first of one paper, and I'm hoping that I can follow up with several more. So I'm going to continue analyzing reservations in terms of racial residential segregation so that we can identify those basic causes. And not just for today, but I'm going to start looking way back. We're looking at historical policies. We're looking at a lot of different things that are way, I guess, far from us, not necessarily at the individual level. And I think for American Indians, when we're looking at it, we have to look at it in terms of history. We have to make sure that we look at it in terms of sovereignty and what our leaders can do, and making sure that the government upholds their trust responsibility, but also making sure that we have that government-to-government relationship that exists. But we also need to think about it in a very positive manner, because sometimes we focus too much on the negative, kind of like what I did here. But we shouldn't do that. We really need to look at our reservations as a base of resilience, of continuity, and a revival of our cultures and traditions. So I'm hoping to kind of integrate those two things. So thank you. Okay, so thank you everybody. This is my email if you want to get a hold of me. And I'll take any questions if you have.
I'm Diane Williams, teacher at Romeo High School. My comment is our access to food, even healthy food. We may have small stores that are close to our communities, but the prices are high, and our people don't have access to go into town, so they have to buy the stuff there, and most times it could be out of date. So that's...
Yeah, and that's a common problem, right? You guys encounter that? You don't have transportation in the community I grew up. You have to go 5 miles to the nearest grocery store. And we have a convenience store, but it's largely soda, pop, candy. I think they even sell fried chicken. But that's really a problem. But one of the things that my tribe's actually been doing is they have what's called the People's Garden. And so they have a garden where they have people working on it full time. I think it's through a grant. But they also have a Roman farmers market. And this is something that other communities are doing too, where they'll bring farmers markets to communities maybe once a week. And again, I know there's grant funds in there from there, and I think Ronald Wood Johnson Foundation has several programs that do that in the local area. Thank you for your time.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I wanted to comment that when we were growing up, you know, my dad was the only provider. He's the only one that worked. My mom stayed home. But today we don't have that luxury. It's expensive to put food on the table, to pay for rent, and all the expenses that go along with it. But we grew up a lot with stews and beans. And on Sundays, our mom would cook a really nice Sunday meal. And that was so, we look forward to that. That was so exciting. Oh yeah, we get to eat more than beans or stews or whatever we ate during the week. And then once a month, when our dad got paid, he would treat us to the Shakey's Pizza Parlor. So we only ate pizza once a month, and we look so forward to that, huh? But I think today, you know, our kids, we spoil them with all kinds of snacks, and you know, when we got home from school, we hardly had any snacks. I don't even remember what we had for snacks. Maybe the tortillas that were left over from the night before, put butter, or if we were lucky to have peanut butter, or dried meat. My dad was a hunter. And so we grew up a lot on deer meat and dried meat, and so that was our treat. Was once a month we'd go to Shakey's Pizza, or maybe once in a great while McDonald's, you know. But now we're just too spoiled. So I think we need to kind of reflect back on going back to the traditional way of eating the stews, whether it's a deer meat stew or hamburger with potatoes in it, but you know, little things like that instead of indulging in like fast food. And I know everybody works and it's hard to cook a stew because it sometimes takes all day to cook a stew. Well, it takes me, but I think we need to kind of go back to all those old ways. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Only thing, well, I do want to respond to it with one word: crock pot.
As regards the desert quality of food distribution, now many communities, native communities, are using mobile services. You know, even at Laguna they had a van that took fresh vegetables and stuff like that for sale to the different villages. So that, I mean, there are lots that can be done, and not so expensively. And I'm sure that somewhere in Native America, there are communities where they have combined community gardens and mobile services like this. So there are many things that we can do now and proceed to have a better life. I think that and it also, it relates to, as regards historical trauma, one of the antidotes or the remedies for that is resiliency, which is true. And I think that we need to think about it more broadly, resiliency more broadly, in terms of efforts that and things that tribes do with community gardens and mobile units and so forth and so on, so that we maintain that sense of interdependence, because that's what underlies all of this. If we give that up, forget it.
Thank you for your comment. Any other questions?
Hi, Professor Tina. This is your Kathy. I actually had a question about the issue you brought up about the workplace, and just knowing that one of the recommendations that maybe, I don't know if you've considered this or not, is asking tribal governments and schools, places of employment to consider giving time to workers to work out, get time to go for walks and help to build that culture, because the environment of work is not changing, especially for women. You know, they gotta juggle work and their families and also be taxi cab drivers. But I think in terms of this project, it sounds really exciting, but I wondered, what are your thoughts about creating that recommendation for a work culture of exercise?
So I don't think research should be done just for the sake of research and for generated knowledge. What I plan to do is just take these findings and more of it and do exactly what you said, because I think I have a responsibility, we all have a responsibility to give back to our community. So yes, it's definitely thought about. This is a more academic one, but I'll have one a little bit different that's more related and more specific for this one. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Oh, one more. Go ahead.
I talk loud, so I could go loud.
This question is in reference to what you said and how we determine priority of things and what we need now and what we need later. And I don't know if my question is in reference to that, but I'm thinking in reference of savings. And now I'm graduating, I have to start saving, or I should have been saving for my life. But what I see on the reservation is not a lot of youth and people are taught how to save. And I don't know if it has to do with that, is that we're constantly prioritizing where our money goes and savings is the last thing that is prioritized, or that's kind of the connection I made, so I just wanted to...
I think that should be a really good research question. It's something that would be worth pursuing, so if you want to go on to graduate school, I think it's a perfect topic. But I do know that HUD does have some programs, and again, grant programs that that really try to educate people about savings and how to do that and why you should do it. And I'm just barely learning myself. So it is a skill that we have to learn. And I have this friend of mine, we were at lunch not too long ago, and we were talking about finances because she wasn't working and I was working. And she said, you know, when we grow up poor, we get that money, we just want to spend it all. We don't know what else to do with it. And she said, every single dollar that I've ever made, I've spent it. And I know in the past that was something that I did. And so I think just kind of thinking about, well, where do these behaviors come from? I definitely didn't learn it from my parents, and so I'm learning how to save, like I said. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm not quite sure if this is it may be a question in reference to my comment. So on Navajo, the Mormon Church has developed or offered a garden program to a lot of Navajo families out there. They've been running it, don't quote me, but I think like 14 years. And the whole goal behind that was to re-empower the Navajo people to get them back to gardening and improve their health and help make them self-sufficient. But they announced this year they're pulling way back. That over that 14-year time period, that goal wasn't achieved. And I'm just wondering, in your research, have you been able to determine, like, how much time does it take before there can be some change that can occur to empower people to become in greater control of their health and improve their health. And I say this because when I go to a lot of the hospitals or clinic on Navajo, it's a really depressing place. So many of our people they're very sick. You know, a lot of amputations from diabetes, blindness, you know, in severe states, and it's all very, very sad, and you know, just sort of speaks to the chronic state of health on Navajo. And if after 14 years that change hasn't occurred in your research, have you been able to ascertain how long does it get to, when will we begin to be re-empowered to make those positive changes?
One of the things that came up in the interviews that aren't here, I actually have a lot of information when people started talking about what do we do. And one of the things that came up is that, well, we know what to do. We know what to do, we just need to mobilize. I mean, I don't have an answer as an academic. I can't go into my community, and I refuse to go into my community and say we should do this. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that people, I guess we need to motivate them or kind of get them excited about what are the things that we can do. What are the things our ancestors did? Because I really do believe that the answer lies in ourselves and in our communities. And thank you for your question, comment.
I think because of poverty and, you know, we look at historical trauma from an outsider perspective, we fail to look at how we are oppressing and suppressing our own family members with that abusive behavior. How we have this self-loathing and punishment to ourselves, where we put ourselves constantly last because we have been devalued for so long. We have to work at making our health important. We've been told so long that these health issues are because of our poorly made genetics, because we're less than. We don't understand that these are things that we have the power to change ourselves. We have to support each other. We have to lift each other up. And a lot of us are still even learning how to do that. We have these food deserts where, you know, if you go anywhere on any res, you will see battered, beaten cars, people walking, kids wandering, nobody's really paying attention. And we have to just stop waiting for someone else to come in and tell us what to do and just help each other. The community gardens are great, but when there's a lot of infighting within the tribe, it's very difficult to make that happen.
You're absolutely right. And this is something that I've thought about quite a bit. And one of the ideas I have that I'd like to try eventually, I don't do intervention research, but hopefully down the way I'll be able to. But one of the things that I would like to try, because it starts so young, and if you think about our history and what we're taught in school, we have like a page in the history books, right? Maybe more if we're lucky. A paragraph. But I think this is where sovereignty comes in, and the sovereignty of our governments, where, so even though we might have public schools on our lands, our leaders have that power to say, you know what, we want you to teach our local history in our schools. We want you to make sure that every child knows what clan they come from and where and what that means. Like, I really think that if we go back and have people actually learn about who they are, it might make a difference in how they feel about themselves.
I just wanted to say that I think it starts within the home, Because for me growing up, I grew up on commodity food and on pop. And me and my husband, we saw how our parents' health was becoming a problem, and we told each other, like, we need to change, we need to eat healthier, and we changed our whole diet and took out fast food, soda, and now when my parents come over, my mom looks through our cabinets and she's like, wow, you have so much expensive food. And like, Mom, you know, this is healthy food. So we're teaching our parents, like, what types of food is good for you. And plus my dad is diabetic, but we're slowly influencing them to make a change.
Yeah, and we can do as much as we can, but I think we've heard from a lot of people too, is like what we do is largely determined by our environment. So if you don't have access to food, you're going to eat cat food, and you may not even know about what foods that are healthy. So you're doing a good job of doing that.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I would just like to say that a lot of this behavior begins at the very beginning, when people start putting soda in baby bottles. And I've had encounters, I guess, with mother-in-laws and grandmas and things like that. And I'm a grandmother now. But several of them would give their grandchildren soda, and then let them have another one, and another one, and another one. And I'm sure not a perfect mom, but I would limit my kids. If I knew they were having one soda, that was it for the day. And I wouldn't let them have another one, and I tried not to keep it in the house too often. But I think that we still are equating love with food, and because I know several of those grandmothers would say things like, they can have whatever they want when they're with me. And one time I had to go out of town. I went on a really long trip. I was gone for 12 days. And my kids were like, they were pretty slim, and they went to stay with their grandparents. And so every day their grandmother would ask them, what do you want for lunch? And my son would say, Burger King. So they would go to Burger King. And when I got back after those 12 days, they had each gained like 10 pounds. They were all chubby. When they came to the door, I was like, what happened? You know, and that's pretty much what happened. So I think the idea of more parenting courses on diet would be very helpful, even with bringing the grandparents and learning how to cook healthy things, you know?
Yeah, bringing in the grandparents is, I think, something you don't do enough.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. On the other hand, I'm from Taos Pueblo, Red Willow Nation, northern New Mexico. At our Pueblo, we have a bison program. We have a Red Willow community farm. We have, in our behavioral health programs, we have a wellness and recovery initiative that they can go out to the Red Willow farm, grow their own vegetables, and we have the farmers market. So they do that, and that was an initiative from the 1995 tribal administration, and it was put forth to tribal members that said we need to do something about, you know, our community. And so also with the Red Willow Garden, we have a youth program, and they go out in the summertime, and whatever they grow, they take half, and then the other half goes to the farmers market, and then that kind of just like regenerates, and they buy more seed. And what we're trying to do is do seed exchanges up there, and we trade seeds with other Pueblo communities, and also, you know, the vegetables and everything. And who knew tomatoes could get political? Because there was one like 2 rows of tomatoes, and then, you know, that was for the farmers market. But you're right, you know, that can happen, even in our small communities. 2 rows of tomatoes was for the farmers market, 2 rows was for the summer lunch program. And they're like, no, well, they didn't put in enough time. But at the same time, it's communities coming, our community coming together and realizing that, yeah, we have to stop. We have to start, actually. We have to be proactive. We also have a Native American nutritionist who comes from the East Coast, and she's like the crock pot queen. I mean, we have a program for first-time mothers and families, and she goes, and of working families also, she goes and does crock pot demonstrations and trainings for parents that want to learn how to, you know, crock pot for the week, and meal planning and things of that sort. So it is doable. My sisters here, it is very doable, because even does it come from an outside entity, our communities have to, you know, put it out there on the table. Let's see, this is what we have, this is what we need to have, and let's use positive affirmations, you know, that we can do this. Let's find the resources, and actually that's my job. I'm a resource finder person in my community. And so there are people out there, you just gotta ask. There are people out there, and they're willing to come and help. And you know, I'm a person that sees the glass half full. So I really encourage everyone here to look into all the resources that you have in your communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It sounds like a great program. And I think one of the things that we can start doing, that it happens more at a, say, IHS level, but and even a National Council of American Indian level, but what we really need to do is just really start working with each other as tribal nations and start exchanging those ideas, because that's where it's going to make a difference. Somebody going to an IHS conference and sharing what they're doing in the community isn't going to do much good. So we really need to have that, not that government relationship with just the federal government, but with each other.
Hi, good morning. I have a question. In your research, you're identifying political, socioeconomic factors that are affecting our tribal nations. And in my community, I feel that we see this systematic oppression coming from our own tribal government. We're from the most western edge of the Navajo Nation, Cameron, Arizona, and our community was directly impacted by the Bennett freeze, and it's been lifted. And now, you know, that's like a free-for-all for our tribal government to